Have you noticed how focusing feels harder than ever? You sit down to study, to work, or even to read, and within just a few minutes, your mind drifts away. It doesn't feel like laziness. It feels like something is pulling your attention, quietly, constantly, almost without you noticing. Here's the uncomfortable truth. This isn't a lack of discipline, and it's not weak willpower. It's your brain responding exactly as it was trained to by the modern world. And once you understand why this is happening, you'll never see distraction the same way again. We have more access to information than ever before, more tools to learn, more ways to grow. And yet, focusing has never felt this difficult. Every single day, notifications compete for your attention. Content keeps coming. It never truly stops. Stimulation is constant. This feeling of distraction is not a personal flaw. It's not laziness. It's not weak discipline. It's a hidden side effect of the environment around you. An environment designed to capture attention. To really understand this, we need to go back to the basics, to how the human brain was designed to function before smartphones existed, before social media, before endless alerts filled every moment. Your brain didn't suddenly change, but the world did. And that explains why focus feels so hard today. The human brain evolved in a much simpler world. For most of human history, there were very few stimuli. Decisions happened slowly. Attention was deep and focused on one task at a time. For thousands of years, being able to focus was not a productivity skill. It was a survival mechanism. Paying attention meant finding food. It meant avoiding danger. It meant staying alive. Because of this, the human brain evolved to prioritize what stands out: movement, sound, novelty. Anything unexpected could signal opportunity or threat. This system worked extremely well in a low stimulation environment. But the environment changed. Today, the average person is exposed to hundreds of stimuli every hour. Notifications, messages, alerts, screens that never turn off. From a neurological perspective, each of these stimuli demands evaluation. Is this important? Is this dangerous? Should I respond? Your brain asks these questions automatically. This process happens before conscious thought. The problem is not weakness. The problem is overload. Technology evolved rapidly, but the human brain did not evolve at the same speed. Neuroscience shows that our attention systems are still optimized for ancient environments. Systems like the dopaminergic reward circuit are especially sensitive to novelty. Each new notification triggers a small dopamine response, not because it feels good, but because it feels important. Over time, this constant stimulation reduces the brain's tolerance for sustained attention. Deep focus becomes harder. Not impossible, but more fragile. Your brain is not broken. It is adapting the only way it knows how: by scanning constantly, by seeking novelty, by trying to protect you from missing something critical. In the modern world, this protective mechanism backfires. Instead of helping you focus, it fragments attention, creates mental fatigue, and produces the feeling of constant distraction. This is not a moral failure. It is a biological response to an unnatural environment. And once you understand how the brain actually works, you stop blaming yourself, and you can begin to design your environment in a way that supports focus instead of fighting it. There's a chemical in your brain called dopamine. It's often misunderstood. Dopamine is not the happiness chemical. It's the anticipation of reward chemical. Its role is simple. It motivates behavior. It pushes you to seek what comes next. From a neurological perspective, dopamine is released before the reward, not after. It spikes when something is new, unexpected, or potentially useful. Every time you receive a short video, a message, or a notification, your brain releases a small burst of dopamine. This happens automatically. You don't choose it. Your brain is simply doing what it evolved to do. Over time, your brain starts to recognize a pattern. This is easy. This is fast. This might be rewarding. And most importantly, this requires very little effort. Neuroscience shows that the brain is highly sensitive to effort-to-reward ratio. Low effort, immediate reward. That combination is extremely powerful. The problem appears over time, as your brain adapts. Tasks that require effort, reading, studying, deep thinking, begin to feel harder. Not because they are useless, not because you are incapable, but because their reward is delayed. From the brain's perspective, delayed reward feels uncertain, and uncertainty reduces motivation. So your brain does what it thinks is logical. It pushes you toward faster rewards, shorter feedback loops, more stimulation. Over time, this rewires your attention system, not permanently, but significantly. Effort begins to feel exhausting. Focus begins to feel uncomfortable, not because something is wrong, but because your brain has learned new priorities. This is not a failure of character. It is a predictable biological response. Your brain is optimizing for efficiency, for speed, for survival in a high-stimulation environment. And unless you understand this mechanism, distraction feels personal, when in reality, it's neurological. Focus requires mental silence. And silence is rare today. In modern environments, the brain is almost never quiet. There is always sound, always movement, always information waiting to be processed. When you try to concentrate, something interesting happens. Your brain does not relax, it resists. Discomfort appears. Thoughts begin to surface. Unrelated ideas, unfinished concerns, random memories. At the same time, anxiety slowly rises, and with it, an urge. The urge to check something. Your phone, a message, anything. This reaction is not accidental. From a neurological perspective, your brain has adapted to constant stimulation. Stimulation became the new normal. When stimulation disappears, the brain interprets it as a problem, a signal that something is missing. In response, the brain enters a mild alert state. This state is uncomfortable. It feels like restlessness, like tension, like impatience. Biologically, this makes sense. For most of human history, a sudden absence of input could mean danger. Silence required awareness, readiness. But in the modern world, that ancient response is misplaced. Instead of danger, there is simply nothing happening. Yet the brain does not know that, so it looks for a way out, a way to reduce discomfort. And the fastest solution is distraction, a quick stimulus, a familiar reward, something predictable. This is why distraction feels almost automatic, not chosen, but triggered. The brain is not seeking pleasure, it is seeking relief. Relief from silence, relief from uncertainty, relief from internal noise. Over time, this pattern strengthens. Silence feels uncomfortable, focus feels heavy, and distraction feels normal. Not because focus is impossible, but because the brain has learned to avoid mental quiet. Understanding this changes everything, because focus is not about force, it's about retraining the brain to tolerate silence again. In studies about attention, researchers observed something unusual. When people were left alone, without stimulation, many felt uncomfortable, even for a short time. In controlled experiments, participants were given a choice. They could stay alone with their own thoughts, or receive small, constant stimuli, simple distractions, sounds, buttons to press, mild sensations. What surprised researchers was the result. Most people preferred constant stimulation, even when they knew that focusing would benefit them, even when the task was simple, even when nothing else demanded their attention. From a neurological perspective, this choice makes sense. The brain is wired to reduce discomfort, and silence, for a brain adapted to stimulation, feels uncomfortable. So the brain chooses immediate relief, not long-term benefit, not future rewards, just relief. This behavior reveals something important. It's not that you are incapable of focusing, and it's not that focus is beyond your reach. Your brain simply learned a new rule, that it doesn't need to focus anymore. In an environment filled with stimulation, focus stopped being necessary. The brain adapted. It outsourced attention to the environment. Screens decide what matters. Notifications decide what is urgent. Algorithms decide what comes next. Over time, the brain stops practicing sustained attention. And like any skill, what is not practiced becomes weaker. This does not mean the ability is gone. It means it is unused, dormant. From a scientific standpoint, attention is plastic. It adapts to demand. When the environment demands constant reaction, the brain reacts. When the environment demands deep focus, the brain can relearn it. The problem is not capacity, it is conditioning. And conditioning can be reversed, but only after you understand what shaped it. Focus was not taken from you. It was slowly replaced by easier options, by faster relief, by constant stimulation. And recognizing that is the first step toward reclaiming it. The modern world is designed to capture your attention. This is not accidental. Digital platforms are built to compete for focus. Every notification, every recommendation, every infinite scroll. The goal is simple: keep you engaged for as long as possible, because the longer you stay distracted, the more someone profits. From a cognitive perspective, this creates a constant battle for your attention, one that your brain must fight every day. When exposed to this environment for long periods, the brain adapts. It enters a form of cognitive survival mode. In this state, the brain becomes energy efficient. It starts conserving resources, avoiding deep effort, reducing sustained attention. From a neurological standpoint, deep focus is metabolically expensive. It consumes glucose. It demands coordination between multiple brain networks. So when constant stimulation is available, the brain chooses the cheaper option: quick stimulation, fast feedback, minimal effort. Over time, focus is gradually replaced by reactive attention, responding instead of thinking, consuming instead of creating. This shift has a cost. The mind begins to feel tired, even without physical exhaustion. This is cognitive fatigue, not caused by work, but by constant switching, constant evaluation, constant reaction. The brain never fully rests, yet it never fully focuses. This state feels like exhaustion, but it is actually mental fragmentation. Understanding this is critical, because the problem is not lack of motivation. It is an environment that trains distraction, and a brain that adapted to survive inside it. Focus was not lost. It was traded for efficiency, and efficiency came at a cost. The solution is not to fight your brain. Fighting creates resistance, and resistance increases fatigue. The real solution is to retrain it. From a neuroscientific perspective, focus is not a trait, it is a skill. And like any skill, it responds to training. Focus behaves like a muscle. When it is constantly interrupted, it weakens. When it is used with intention, it strengthens. Retraining focus does not require extremes. It starts small.
Short periods of deep attention, minutes, not hours. From the brain's perspective, these moments signal safety. They teach the nervous system that silence is not a threat, that effort is tolerable. At the same time, reducing unnecessary stimuli is critical. Fewer notifications, fewer interruptions, less constant input. This lowers cognitive load and restores balance. Another key element is boredom. Boredom is not a problem. It is a training ground. It creates space for the brain to recalibrate. At first, this process feels uncomfortable. Restlessness appears. The urge to escape returns. This is expected. It is a sign that the brain is adjusting. Over time, neuroplasticity takes place. Neural pathways linked to sustained attention grow stronger. Discomfort decreases. Focus becomes easier to maintain. What once felt exhausting starts to feel natural, not because the world changed, but because your brain did. This is how focus is rebuilt, not through force, but through gradual, intentional practice, aligned with how the brain actually learns.
Maybe the problem was never you. Maybe it's an ancient brain trying to survive in a world it was never designed for. A brain built for silence, now trapped in constant noise. Every alert, every scroll, every interruption. So the real question is not about discipline, it's about choice. Will you keep feeding distraction, or will you teach your brain how to focus again? Because awareness changes everything, and focus can be rebuilt. If this video made you stop and think, leave a comment. And if you want to truly understand how your mind works, subscribe to the channel.